Let's get started in the NFL, where the Houston Texans and the Buffalo Bills made waves this morning, finalizing a trade that moves four-time Pro Bowl wide receiver Stefon Diggs from the Buffalo Bills to the Houston Texans. The Bills are trading Diggs along with a 2024 sixth-round pick and a 2025 fifth-round pick in exchange for Houston's second-round selection in 2025. The move would officially end Diggs' tenure in Buffalo. As for Houston, they've now surrounded quarterback C.J. Stroud with a big-time wide receiver. You know I've been talking about this for the longest time. You know I've been telling y'all Diggs went out. He finally got his wish, and it ain't a bad situation that he's in. You're talking about C.J. Stroud. This brother is spectacular, the offensive rookie of the year. He's absolutely spectacular. A lot of people are projecting he's going to be a top 5 quarterback in the National Football League next season. You got Tank Dell. You got Nico Collins. You got Dalton Schultz. You got Joe Mixon. You got a whole bunch of cats that are doing big things for the Houston Texans, not to mention the defense led by defensive rookie of the year in Will Anderson out of Alabama. You know what D'Amico Ryans, who, by the way, tied Kevin Stefanski for Coach of the Year honors in terms of numbers of votes, but they have to go to the tie-breaking scheme because they have to look at it and say, hey, he got more first-place votes than D'Amico Ryan, the guy in Cleveland. I'm talking about Kevin Stefanski. In the end, what it comes down to, if you're Stefon Diggs, is this. No excuses. We know that the first 6 games of the year, first 5 or 6 games of the year, you had averaging about 103 yards in receptions. The last 11 games, it dipped to 51. And in 16 touchdowns that Josh Allen has thrown over the last 3 years, not a single one came to you. We also know you dropped that pass in the postseason. We know you're big time. We know that. But in the end, no more griping, no more moaning about the situation, opportunities, missed opportunities lost. This is it for Stefon Diggs. We know what a big-time talent he is. But being in Houston, you can't ask for a more ideal situation for him and his talents, particularly with what they're building in it. I love what they're doing in Houston. I got to give props where props is due. We'll see what this materializes into, but we can all hope and anticipate that it's going to be a big-time deal. Who better to talk to about this than my next guest, the man who broke the story. He's my colleague at ESPN, the ultimate insider himself, the great Adam Schefter. Honored to have you on the Stephen A. Smith Show on YouTube. What's going on, man? How are you? How's everything?
Honored to make my maiden voyage on the Stephen A. Show, Stephen A. It's awesome to do. Thank you.
Man, thank you so much. Why did this trade go down? Talk to us about Stefon Diggs and his time in Buffalo and what led to him ultimately being traded to the Texans today.
Look, how many times have we heard about Stefon Diggs wanting out of Buffalo, whether it was from him or from his brother tweeting about the fact that his brother was underappreciated, underused, not getting what they should out of him. And so there have been so many different messages along the way. Let's go back a year ago. Stefon Diggs is not at the Buffalo Bills mandatory minicamp. The Bills head coach at the time, Sean McDermott, says it's a major concern that he's not there. They meet the next day, and he's back on the field. Now, what was that about? We never really heard the full truth, but there's been smoke surrounding Stefon Diggs' happiness or lack thereof in Buffalo the last couple of years. It certainly has seemed, as you're saying, Stephen A., as I have heard, that he's wanted out of Buffalo. And now he finally gets his wish. It looked like down the stretch they tried not to use him at certain times, that they were trying to prove that the offense could overcome not having to feature him. And so this is a relationship that ran its course. The two sides had been moving in opposite directions. And really, I think what happened here is a couple of weeks back, the Houston Texans went to the Minnesota Vikings and initiated a trade in which they got out of the first round, got an extra second-round pick, and they got an extra 2 in that deal as well in 2025. Well, lo and behold, everybody assumed that trade was the Vikings initiating it so that they could go up and get a quarterback. But the truth of the matter was, it was the Texans who initiated that to get out of the first round, to get added draft capital in the second round, the next 2 years, so that they could go be in position to make a trade like the one that they did on Wednesday, acquiring Stefon Diggs at what many people are surprised by the price in the end.
Talk to me about that price. You got a 6th-round pick. You pointed out, I pointed out what they gave up for him. Was that too much? Was that too little? Was it just right what the Houston Texans ended up giving up to acquire a talent like Stefon Diggs? Explain that to the football audience.
Well, it's what the market bore at this point in time, right? And there are a few reasons for that. Number one, Stefon Diggs has been perpetually unhappy in Buffalo. Number two, he's 31 years old. Number three, probably is going to want at some point an adjustment on his contract. Number four, the production, as you pointed out, in the second half of the season wasn't there. So we hear four-time Pro Bowl wide receiver Stefon Diggs. We know what a great player he is, but the Bills don't view it necessarily the same. They view it as somebody that they can move on from and get back a draft pick, so much so that they were willing to eat an additional $3 million against their salary cap this season, which is what happens by trading Diggs to the Texans. It cost them an extra $3 million against their cap this year, but they're out from all Diggs cap charges after this season. So on the one hand, you've got this mercurial talent who's incredible when he's happy and when he's producing. On the other hand, you've got a guy who's 31, who had declining production this year, who wasn't happy in Buffalo, who would like a contract adjustment. And so there's the two sides of the situation and why it came down the way it did today, Stephen A.
How can we look at the Houston Texans at this particular moment in time? You called them mercurial. We know what a big-time talent he is. We know that Nico Collins, Tank Dell, Dalton Schultz, and those brothers can play. What is Stefon Diggs perceived as being able to do for the Houston Texans for this upcoming season, particularly with C.J. Stroud as his quarterback and DeMeco Ryans as his head coach?
Well, listen, you have to operate under the assumption that Stefon Diggs is going to feel liberated and he's going to be ecstatic about the fact that he wanted out of Buffalo and he lands in a place with an incredible young quarterback on a team where, again, he'll be the number one receiver, I'm sure, but Nico Collins is really good and Tank Dell is really good and even Noah Brown is really good. They're loaded at wide receiver, at tight end, at running back. I mean, that team is built to win now. And you think about where the Texans were. They were a laughing stock in the NFL
just 2 years ago. Just 2 years ago.
That's right. And now you look at them and you say, they're as good as anybody right now on paper.
Yeah.
And we'll see how they perform. But Diggs comes in there because he's Diggs. He comes in as Diggs, Stephen A. He comes in as the alpha, as the number one, as an added weapon. And let's see what he can do. And let's see. I'm going to bet that he responds to the challenge, that he loves the fact that he's in a new spot, and that he responds to his new environment and performs accordingly.
I'm wondering what level of pressure is on his shoulders from this perspective, Adam Schefter. You're departing from Josh Allen. I understand what a stud C.J. Stroud is, but Josh Allen is no slouch. And to be in Buffalo and to find a way not to be happy in Buffalo, you can have folks that'll look at McDermott, they might look at Josh Allen, they might look at the whole situation in Buffalo in terms of changing offensive coordinators, particularly after Brian Daboll took the New York Giants head coaching job. But in the end, if you're a wide receiver in the National Football League and you're perceived as being somebody that was unhappy and was pouting in Buffalo with Josh Allen as your quarterback, what kind of pressure does that put on Stefon Diggs' shoulders? Not just to perform, but to get along in an obviously thriving environment in Houston.
Well, Stephen A., you know what it's like? It's like him and Josh Allen had been in this troubled relationship. They were together for a while. And just think about anybody in any troubled relationship. When they get out after a while, they're only too happy to go on to their next new partner. And in this particular case, I don't view this as Stefon Diggs feeling added pressure about having a new partner. I feel that he will be relieved and happy about connecting with a new quarterback. And there were times, I could think back to the Bills' home playoff loss against the Bengals a couple of seasons ago where Stefon Diggs and Josh Allen were going at it at the sideline. Diggs not happy, voicing his displeasure. There were numerous instances where basically Diggs was unhappy. Even yesterday, you see there the tweet where somebody said, you know, does Josh benefit from having a top-tier receiver? Yes. Is he essential to his success? No. And Stefon Diggs said, you sure? Now, at that point in time, when he tweets that, he has to know that there's a real possibility that he has already played his last down in Buffalo. And I think he's looking for a new partner. He's looking for somebody in his mind, whose commitment matches his, somebody who's as dedicated as he is, somebody who the game and winning and losing matters as much as it does to him. And so I think all those factors come into play here and explain why I don't view it as him thinking there'll be added pressure so much as there'll be added happiness and relief at moving on to a new team and a new quarterback.
All right, if you're Josh Allen, how should you feel? Gabe Davis is gone, and now Stefon Diggs is gone. If you're Josh Allen, how should you be feeling today?
You should feel challenged. You should feel the fact that the top two wideouts on the offense last year are gone, and that if ever there were a time where you're going to be asked to rise to the challenge, this is it. Buffalo is saying the guys that you relied on in previous seasons, the production that they had the last few years was through the roof. And now you, Josh Allen, a franchise quarterback, the face of your franchise, needs to find a way to overcome the loss of a four-time Pro Bowl wide receiver and another wide receiver that the Jacksonville Jaguars saw fit to pay $13+ million a year to. Now it's up to you, and it's up to Curtis Samuel and James Cook, and a lot of different guys that you haven't even heard of to step in and take the place of productive players in this offense. And so, to me, just like Stefon Diggs is going to be inspired and motivated to go to a new place, well, Josh Allen's staying in the same place, but he's going to be inspired, motivated, and challenged to try to achieve new heights.
Just a couple of questions before I let you get on out of here. Challenge is another word for pressure in this particular conversation that we're having right now. If Josh Allen feels that way, what about Coach Sean McDermott? What kind of challenge or what kind of pressure is he on to make things happen? Bills Mafia is starving for a Super Bowl championship. 3 years ago, we watched them in an AFC divisional playoff game, one of the epic matchups between Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes. Buffalo at Kansas City, the game in which Kansas City won. Ever since then, they've fallen short. They've lost to Cincinnati. They lost in the playoffs again to Kansas City. What are we to make of their coach and his status in Buffalo in light of these changes that have been made?
Well, number one, coaches in the NFL are challenged every year.
Okay.
Number two, coaches on teams with franchise quarterbacks who don't win regularly in the playoffs are challenged. And number three, just like there was speculation and talk about Diggs' future in Buffalo, there's been talk about Sean McDermott's future in Buffalo. So, of course, he's under fire to produce this year. That goes without saying. That's regular for this particular league and the coaches that are working in it. And so I know Sean McDermott, of course, knows that he's going to have to win, that the pressure's on him, and that if they don't, that there'll be consequences to pay and answers to be had. But he knows that going in, and his job, just like Josh Allen's, became more challenging, having to produce an offense and win games in general without one of the top talented wideouts in the NFL.
I know you know the answer to this question, particularly since this trade just happened this morning. Who do you believe people are looking at in the AFC East as the favorites in light of what's transpired today with Diggs being gone now? Is it Miami? Is it still Buffalo? Dare I say, is it Aaron Rodgers and the New York Jets? I mean, who are people looking at in the AFC East now, Adam Schefter? What are they telling you?
Well, I still think Josh Allen is the best quarterback in the division. I think the Jets have a lot of talent and a lot of question marks. If they can stay healthy, they'll be able to play with anybody.
Right.
And the Miami Dolphins last year were one of the surprise teams. So, again, it's sort of like mutual funds. Past performance does not guarantee future success.
Right.
And we can't look at last year and apply it to this year. But I think you could look at those three teams, and it would not be a surprise if any one of them came out of the AFC. The surprise would be if New England found a way to bounce back to win that division this year. But short of that, you can make an argument for Buffalo easily. You could see the Jets staying healthy and coming through, and you could see Miami playing at the level it did last season. Again, I think there are major question marks with every team. They all have questions they have to answer. And the team that does the best job addressing those questions in camp into the season will be the one that prevails and likely wins the AFC East.
Very last question. You know I had a smile on my face because I'm smiling at you right now, Adam Schefter. You know what this means to me, right? It means that the Houston Texans might very well be the best football team in Texas. it might be a problem for the Dallas Cowboys right now. I mean, I don't know if I can say that the Dallas Cowboys are better than the Houston Texans coming in the next season, Adam Schefter. Am I off my kilter there a little bit? Am I exaggerating? Am I embellishing? Or might I be right about that?
Stephen A., it is April, May, June, July, August, September. You've got 6-7 months to bask in this, to ride this, to keep laughing and smoking cigars and putting on your Cowboys hat to say, how about them Cowboys? Because you know what? You got a legitimate argument right there that right. Houston is the best team in Texas right now. And you can stand on that and rest easy and enjoy that. And ride it for all it's worth, Stephen A. Enjoy the next 6-7 months.
Yes.
And it may be beyond that.
Yes.
Because C.J. Stroud is that good. So the Houston Texans may be the best team in Texas for months, maybe even seasons to come, Stephen A., which I'm sure that would just break your heart. But you know what? Enjoy all that's ahead. Enjoy all that's ahead. Blessings to you, my friend.
The best insider in the business, the one and only Adam Schefter for ESPN, my buddy, my colleague, my friend. I appreciate you so much. He just sat up there and confirmed, America, that I indeed may be right about the Texans being the best team in Texas. Thanks a lot, Adam. Appreciate you, man. Thank you so much, buddy.
Stephen A., thank you for having me on my maiden voyage.
All right,
Thank
my man. The one and only Adam Schefter right here.